You wake up one morning and forget where you are. The wallpaper is different. The air smells sterile, like bleach and old linens. And your favorite chair, the one that always caught the afternoon sun, has vanished. In that instant, something cold settles in your chest. This isn't your home. I am 82 years old, and I've lived a full life. I've raised children, held jobs, traveled across states, laughed until I cried, and mourned more than my share. Through all of it, I've learned what matters, what fades, and what is truly worth holding on to. But of all the choices I've made, there is one I carry with a weight I never expected: the decision to move into a nursing home. It seemed sensible at the time. My family gently urged it. They painted a picture of safety, comfort, routine. A place where meals would be made, where medical help would be just down the hall, where others my age would share stories and play cards and make these later years feel a little less lonely. And I believed them. I believed in the promise. But that promise came with a cost no one warned me about. No one tells you how slowly your life stops feeling like your own. Not all at once, but bit by bit. It starts with small things. Your morning tea made too strong by someone else. The television always tuned to a channel you didn't choose. Lights out even though you're still wide awake and deep into a novel. You don't fight it at first. You tell yourself it's temporary. You want to be polite. But then you realize you've started asking permission to live. And here's what they don't always put in the brochures. More than 1 million Americans live in nursing homes, and yet nearly half of them report feeling lonely or isolated. That's not just a number. It's a warning. The average resident is over 80 years old, often with limited mobility, and spends as much as 22 hours a day indoors, many of those hours in bed or in a chair. Not by choice, but by design. Most nursing homes follow strict schedules: meals at set times, lights out by 9, group activities slotted into calendar blocks. On paper, it looks organized. But in real life, it can feel more like being managed than cared for. Studies have shown that fewer than 15 minutes per day of one-on-one interaction is common in understaffed facilities. That's barely enough time to say hello, let alone have a real conversation or share a laugh. And the staff? Most are doing their best. They're tired. Many are underpaid, overworked, stretched across too many patients. It's not personal. It's systemic. But to someone like me, sitting by a window, remembering the sound of my own front door closing behind me, it feels deeply personal. There's also the issue of safety, something they promised would be better. And in some ways, it is. Medical attention is nearby. But did you know that over 1 in 5 residents experience some form of medication error or mistreatment, often due to understaffing or lack of oversight? That's not fear-mongering. It's data from government audits. I'm not saying every nursing home is bad. Some are well run. Some truly care. But even the best ones can't give you back what you give up when you walk through that door and hang your independence on the hook beside your coat. And that's what I wish someone had told me. That beneath the structure and routine lies something much harder to live with: the slow erasure of the life you used to choose for yourself. Before I came here, my days were my own. I rose when the birds did, brewed my tea exactly how I liked it, and sat in my threadbare chair to watch the neighborhood stretch awake. I could walk outside and feel the grass under my feet, water the flowers in my old clay pots, and call my sister just to laugh over nothing. Those weren't big things, but they were mine. Now? Now I wait for someone to unlock the garden gate. I eat when they serve. I sleep when they switch off the lights. Even my clothes, folded neatly by kind but unfamiliar hands, feel like they belong to someone else. There was one morning, my 4th or 5th day here, I reached for the book I'd left on my nightstand every evening for years. It wasn't there. The nightstand was gone. So was the soft ticking clock that used to lull me to sleep. The room was quiet in a hollow way. The bed is too firm. The blankets didn't smell like home. And suddenly, I felt like a guest in someone else's life. That's when it truly sank in. I hadn't just changed addresses. I had surrendered something far deeper. The gentle, invisible thread of independence that makes you feel alive. And the worst part? You don't even realize it's unraveling until it's already gone. People think it's the big things that hurt. The loss of space, the shared bathrooms, the sterile meals. But it's not. It's the loss of choice. Of deciding how to spend your morning. Of sitting in silence when you want to, not because there's no one to talk to. It's not just structure. It's confinement, wrapped up in polite routines and smiling orderlies. I tried to resist it at first. I asked for a different lunch, stayed up reading past lights out, even wore my red sweater 3 days in a row, just because it felt like something I could still choose. But resistance becomes exhausting. You give in because it's easier. And then, one day, you realize you've stopped choosing altogether. Before you or someone you love considers this move, really consider this. Are you ready to let go of the quiet freedoms, the tiny decisions that make you feel like yourself? Not the big flashy moments, not the once-in-a-lifetime vacations, or the milestone celebrations. I'm talking about the simple, everyday choices. The comfort of deciding when to eat, what music to play, whether to wear your blue cardigan, or the one with the missing button you love too much to throw out. These are the invisible threads that stitch your identity together. Because once they're gone, you won't just miss them. You'll ache for them in ways you never imagined. It's a deep kind of ache, one that settles in your bones. At first, you brush it off. You tell yourself, this is normal. I just need time to adjust. You try to be positive, grateful even. You remind yourself that you're safe, that you're cared for. But then you find yourself hesitating before asking for something simple. A different sandwich, a longer walk, a second blanket. You don't want to be difficult. You don't want to be that resident. And just like that, you start shrinking. You smile more, but speak less. You exist, but you stop living on your own terms. And if that weren't enough, let me tell you what came next. Regret number 2. The one that crept in so softly I almost didn't notice until it had wrapped itself around my heart like a winter fog. It was the feeling of being forgotten. Not all at once. It didn't come with slammed doors or cruel words. It came with silence. With the days stretching a little longer, the evenings growing a little quieter. It started with a missed visit here, a delayed call there. At first, you understand. Of course you do. They're busy. They have children, jobs, errands. Life is full. But slowly, the days between visits turn into weeks. The phone calls grow shorter, and sometimes they stop altogether. You begin to memorize the rhythm of the hallways instead. The squeak of a cart, the soft shuffle of slippers. You start looking forward to the nurse who brings your medication, not because of the pills, but because it means someone is coming to speak to you, even if just for a moment. You begin to wonder if they remember the sound of your voice, if they still picture you when they talk about mom or grandma or Uncle Ray. You stop sharing stories, not because they're gone, but because there's no one left to hear them. It's a strange kind of grief, being alive and yet feeling erased. You smile when they finally do visit, and you mean it, because you love them deeply. But deep inside, there's a flicker of sadness you try hard to hide. You've gone from being their constant to being a memory they try to make room for, between meetings and meal prep and soccer practice. And it's not just me. I see it on the faces of others too. The way they light up at the sound of footsteps, the way they sit a little straighter when someone walks by, hoping, just maybe, it's their someone. Most times it's not, and you watch them sink back into their chairs, holding on to a hope they pretend not to have. This is the part no one talks about, not in pamphlets or glossy brochures. This quiet fading from the lives you once held together with your bare hands. It doesn't hurt like a slap. It hurts like silence, like being left out of your own story. In those first few weeks, I had visitors. My daughter, bless her heart, brought me baked muffins and photos of the grandchildren. They came on weekends. They laughed and held my hand and promised they'd come back soon. And they did, for a while. But life is busy. Appointments pile up. Soccer games and work meetings and flat tires and headaches get in the way. And the visits grew fewer. A call here and there, a voicemail, a text. Sorry, Dad, next weekend, okay? Except next weekend turned into next month, and the room got quieter. I started dressing up on Sundays. I'd brush my hair just the way I used to, spritz a bit of cologne I hadn't used in years, and sit by the window, waiting. Sometimes they came. Often they didn't. And I'd pretend I wasn't waiting at all. There was one night I remember clearly. I picked up my phone, thumb hovering over my son's name. I just wanted to hear his voice, but I couldn't do it. I didn't want to seem like a burden, like one more thing on his list. So I put the phone down. And that silence, it was worse than loneliness. It was the feeling of being left behind. You stop being part of their everyday. You're no longer in the photos, no longer in the stories. You're watching their lives unfold from a distance, like a spectator, to a show you used to star in. And no matter how much they love you, no matter how many times they say they'll come by, the truth is, out of sight becomes out of mind far faster than you'd believe. I've seen it happen to others here too. You notice it in the way they stare at the front door, when footsteps echo in the hall, the way their eyes light up at the possibility, and then dim just as quickly when it's not their person. That kind of loneliness, it's not about being alone in a room. It's about being erased from someone's daily life. You're not just missing from the dinner table. You're missing from the rhythm of their world, like a song they use to hum but haven't thought about in weeks. So ask yourself this, from one soul to another. Can you live with that kind of silence? The kind that doesn't echo. It just settles. The kind that comes not from the absence of noise, but from the absence of being needed, remembered, included. And yet, I'm not alone in this silence. That's the irony. There are dozens of us under this roof, breathing the same air, watching the same clock tick by. Let me take you deeper into this place, because it's not just about me. I am surrounded by others, good people, all carrying their own quiet stories, each one shaped by choices they made or that life made for them. Some came here with sadness in their eyes, others with something closer to relief, but none of us expected to end our journey this way. And when you live inside these walls long enough, you learn to see past the surface smiles. You learn the backstories that brought us all here. Barbara is 78. She's one of the kindest souls you'll ever meet. Her voice is soft, her hands always busy knitting or folding something just so. She has this way of making a room feel warmer just by being in it. You'd never guess she has no one left. No siblings, no children, no nieces or nephews. Cancer took her sister a decade ago. Her husband passed 15 years before that. She lived alone as long as she could, until one fall in her kitchen changed everything. No one came looking. It was a neighbor who found her 2 days later. Now she's here, not because she wanted to be, but because she had no other option. She doesn't complain. She smiles. She joins the activities. She even sings during bingo. But there's a quietness in her eyes that tells you she's still searching for a familiar face, for a home that no longer exists. Then there's Roger. Stubborn as an old mule, as he'll proudly tell you himself. He's in his late 80s, and everything about him, from his rigid posture to the fire in his words, screams independence. He didn't choose to come here. He was brought, kicking and grumbling all the way. His children, 3 of them, tried. They really did. He'll roll his eyes when he talks about them, but you can hear the bitterness in his voice. They couldn't handle me, he says, as if proud. But the truth, whispered by the nurses and sometimes in his quieter moments, is that they tried to care for him. They rearranged work schedules, moved him into their homes, even hired extra help. But he fought every bit of it, refused medicine, argued constantly, rejected help at every turn. He didn't want to be a burden, yet couldn't accept any form of assistance without a fight. They loved him, but they were exhausted. And now he sits alone at meals, muttering about the way things used to be, while a small photograph of his children in a cheap plastic frame gathers dust on his nightstand. And then there's George, sweet, gentle George. His room is 2 doors down from mine. Most days, he doesn't know where he is. He has Alzheimer's, dementia, and his body is failing him faster than anyone would wish. His wife visits every morning, rain or shine, and holds his hand while he stares past her, not always recognizing her face. They were married 57 years. Their daughters tried, too. Took turns caring for him at home until the sleepless nights. The wandering, the accidents became too much. It's not that they didn't want to help. It's that the level of care he needed surpassed what love alone could provide. And so, he's here, because there was nowhere else. His wife sits beside him and reads old letters, hoping that something familiar will stir in his memory. Some days it does. Most days, it doesn't. But she comes anyway. These are just 3 stories. But in places like this, there are hundreds more. Each hallway holds a lifetime of memories and decisions, regrets, and good intentions. Not everyone is here because they failed. Sometimes life just corners you. Sometimes love and effort simply aren't enough to hold back age, illness, or loneliness. So when people ask me why I regret moving into a nursing home, it's not just about the food or the schedule or the walls that never quite feel like mine. It's about being surrounded by all these stories, so full of love and loss, and realizing that for so many of us, This wasn't a choice. It was the last stop after all the other doors closed. Some of us, like Barbara and George, truly had no other road to take. Life narrowed their choices to a single hallway, a shared dining room, and the soft beeping of call buttons at night. For Barbara, there simply weren't any more hands to hold. She did everything right, but time was cruel, and fate lonelier still. For George, love wasn't the issue. His family's devotion shines brighter than most. But his needs outgrew what even the strongest love could manage. Around-the-clock care, memory loss, wandering, incontinence. These are not things you can power through with good intentions alone. But for others, the truth is harder to swallow. Some of us could have had a different outcome. If only we'd made peace with our pride, picked up the phone one more time, or listened a little more. If only we'd been willing to receive help without turning it into a battle. Roger is the clearest example of that. He wasn't pushed here by illness or abandonment. He was carried here on a wave of broken bridges. His children tried, truly they did, but he met every outstretched hand with defiance. Somewhere along the line, his independence became a wall too thick for love to climb. I think about that often. How much pain might be avoided, not with more medication or better walls, but with more humility, more forgiveness, more willingness to let go of the need to be right. Sometimes staying out of a place like this isn't just about health. It's about healing. Relationships that could be mended, resentments that could be released. But too often we let the years harden us, and by the time we need each other the most, the doors are already shut. And then, of course, there's the matter no one likes to talk about, money. Many of us didn't plan well. We thought we had time. We assumed our pensions or Social Security would be enough, or that our children would somehow manage to fill the gaps. But the truth is, nursing homes are expensive. Thousands of dollars each month, often far more than what the average person has coming in. If you don't have long-term care insurance, if your savings are thin, if you haven't carefully prepared for the possibility of needing help someday, you may find yourself with no say in where you end up. A private caregiver, a home nurse, even modifying your house to make it safer. These things cost money. Real planning, years in advance, could make those options possible. But most of us don't think that far ahead. We avoid the conversation. We put off the hard questions. And so, when the moment comes, we're not choosing the best option. We're accepting the only one left. If someone had sat me down 20 years ago and told me what to expect, what to save, what to prioritize, maybe things would have turned out differently. Maybe I could have stayed in my home longer. Maybe I could have hired the help I needed on my terms. Maybe, but no one did. And I didn't ask. And so here I am. That's why I'm telling you now, while there's still time to think, to talk, to act. Because regret doesn't always come like thunder. Sometimes it whispers quietly from the corner of a room you no longer recognize as your own. Let me know if this has ever happened to you or someone you love. I'm not done sharing yet. There's more I wish I had known. And I'll tell you the rest soon, so be sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. This way, you won't miss the next video.